5 weird supernatural stories from 18th century Great Britain. The Phantom Bird of West Drayton. Around 1749, the villagers of West Drayton, England, frequently heard screaming as well as a knocking noise coming from the local church. Nobody was certain where exactly the sounds originated, but there were a lot of sightings of a strange raven that would fly inside the church and its vaults. A group of 4 men and 2 boys who found the bird in the chancel one time tried chasing it down. After being smacked with a stick a few times, the raven fell to the ground with a scream. But just as its body hit the floor, the bird disappeared from its attacker's eyes. Still, after that incident, the raven could be seen flying about its usual spots. Among the villagers, it was said that the bird was actually the ghost of a murderer who'd killed himself. Back then, a man like that wouldn't have been allowed a proper burial, but his family had managed to get him a spot in the churchyard. The Ghost Who Saved John Thomas. On December 21st, 1783, a 62-year-old drunk named John Thomas was walking back home in the dark when he accidentally fell into a deep pit. After realizing that Thomas was missing, his friends tried looking for him, but Thomas would be stuck in the hole for another week. One day, while a neighbor was looking for his sheep, he noticed a figure sitting on a bank of dirt near the pit. As the neighbor approached the man, he stood up and went behind the bank. Curious, the neighbor checked the spot and found that the man had vanished into thin air. Suddenly, the neighbor heard a voice coming from the pit. Thinking it was a moonshiner, though, the neighbor ignored it and pressed on. Fortunately, he heard the voice again on his way back and recognized it was the missing drunkards. John Thomas' ghost helper, however, never turned up. The Sea Dragon of Suffolk. Off the coast of Suffolk, England, in November 1749, a group of fishermen were shocked to find a sea monster among the mackerel in their net. The monster had wings, an alligator head, and hooves for feet, features which reminded some of the fishermen of a dragon. After taking the sea dragon to shore and beating it with a boat hook, the creature's captors had the brilliant idea of opening the net. Unsurprisingly, the monster took off, flying 46 meters or 150 feet up into the air. The first man who tried to catch it had some of his fingers bitten off. The bite was so horrible that it killed him. The next man who went after the sea dragon was luckier. He ended up catching it, but only because the monster landed on his arm and squeezed it so tightly that it deformed his hand and fingers. While a man might have died in the attempt, the sea dragon was a good catch, and the surviving fishermen showed its carcass across the country. Miss Pringle's doppelganger. On an early morning stroll in Scotland's Clifton Park in the summer of 1745, housekeeper Jane Lowe told her employer, a man named Pringle, that she'd spotted his daughter walking along the rivulet. This was impossible, though. Miss Pringle was nearly 1,000 miles away, living in France. Lowe was positive it wasn't a different woman, however, and wanted to show Pringle. While coming up to the spot, Pringle really did see his daughter, who then jumped into the rivulet and vanished. Afterward, Pringle and his housekeeper reported it to the rest of the family, but everyone else laughed it off as a joke. 3 months later, Pringle was paid a visit by a son he hadn't seen in 10 years. His boy explained that he'd been a slave in Tunis, but one morning he inexplicably saw his sister and was then ransomed. After going back to France, he discovered that his sister had actually been dead, having died at the exact same moment she was last seen in both Tunisia and Scotland. The Hinton Ampner House. For generations, the Hinton Ampner House was inhabited by the Stukely family. By the mid-18th century, the Stukelys had died out, and the house came into the hands of the Stawells. It was then rented to William Henry Ricketts, and although Ricketts had no knowledge of it during the time, the house had a reputation for being haunted. Once the Ricketts family moved in, they could hear their doors and windows violently shut at night. Footsteps could be heard in the hallways. A man in drab-colored clothes would sometimes appear, and 3 disembodied voices could be heard having conversations. Everybody in the house experienced something strange, and 8 servants quit in 1769 alone. Lady Stawell, The owner of the house offered a reward to anyone who could solve the mystery. Nobody ever claimed the prize, and the Hinton-Ampner house was soon abandoned. In 1797, while tearing the building down, workers found a small skull in a box underneath the first floor. It was thought to be a monkey's skull, but rumors that Lady Stawell's late husband had a baby with her sister suggested a grislier theory. Leave us a comment down below and share your thoughts with us. Give this video a thumbs up if you found it informative, and don't forget to watch other videos from Interesting Facts. Thank you for watching.